Alors, bienvenue sur la scène principale du FIC Amérique du Nord pour ce panel Cybersecurity at all cost. Alors, je vais faire la présentation en français, mais par la suite, la conférence sera en anglais. Alors, en 2021, le Boston Consulting Group estimait que les entreprises du secteur financier étaient 3 fois plus susceptibles d'être la cible de cyberattaques que celles de d'autres secteurs, avec des infrastructures de marché hautement numérisées, des activités bancaires fortement dématérialisées, des systèmes hyperconnectés. Le monde de la finance fait en effet face à un risque de cyber potentiellement systémique. C'est aussi l'un des secteurs les plus encadrés, avec une multitude de réglementations particulièrement strictes au niveau national et international, mais aussi au niveau du métier. Au-delà de ces réglementations qui demandent d'abord un travail considérable de mise et maintien en conformité, quels outils, méthodes et process sont nécessaires pour garantir la cybersécurité du secteur financier et assurer la stabilité financière de nos sociétés? Alors, les participants, tout d'abord, André Boucher, qui est CISO pour la Banque nationale du Canada, donc CISO for National Bank of Canada. Nous avons Jean-Sébastien Pilon, Vice President Security Operation at Desjardins. Sunil Badlani, CISO for Mellon Investment Management Business, part of the Bank of New York Mellon. Et finalement, Dimitri Schwartzman, Head of Cybersecurity Strategy at PayPal. Thank you for being here. First question, it's always the easiest one. Can you quickly introduce yourself and tell us your title in your organization for maybe you, Dimitri?
Sure. Sorry, I'm still trying to figure out the technical parts of this, but this is awesome. Thank you for having me. So as mentioned, my name is Dimitri Schwarzman. I lead the Cybersecurity Strategy Group at PayPal. I report to our CISO, and as the main objective of my group is to combine different aspects of security architecture, internal platform product management, threat modeling, program management into a cohesive strategy for where we need to go from a security standpoint. So not just only looking at the current state, but the future state inclusive of current and future threats.
Hi, my name is Sunil Badlani. I work for Bank of New York Mellon, and my role though is there to make sure the business, the actual owner of the data, making sure all the security are in place as per the information security standard set by SEC. SEC is our regulator.
Hello everybody, I'm Jean-Sébastien Pilon. I'm a board member of Cybersécurity, which is a non-profit organization to promote cybersecurity in Quebec and in Canada. And I'm CISO of Mouvement Desjardins, who's one large credit union in financial industry. It's been 30 years I'm in IT, started as a developer, moved to IT operation, always in a management role, and I've been an enterprise architect, and today I've been more than 12 years. I'm at the Mouvement Desjardins as a lead in cybersecurity.
Good morning, everyone. I think I'm going to get rid of the headset.
Yeah.
It's a bit tricky. Good morning, André Boucher with National Bank of Canada. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer. Simply put, we're responsible to keep our environment secure and our clients happy and feeling that feeling of safety. My journey is a little different. I've only been in the financial sector for 18 months. Before that, I was at the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, a federal organization who has a bunch of folks here today. And before that, I was doing cyber in uniform, so for the Canadian Forces. So I've seen different aspects of this environment. I look forward to our conversation this morning.
Great, thank you so much. The financial sector is highly regulated, like you said, being considered a critical infrastructure in many countries. So what is the importance of cybersecurity for your industry? Maybe André?
Oh, I get started with the easiest one. I think trust is at the center of any financial sector institution. So I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody. Cybersecurity is certainly in vogue and highly discussed these days, but fundamentally at the very root, we're a trust-based organization, And where we used to do that in different elements, in moving money around and moving assets around, now we're moving digital assets and protecting digital assets. So to the risk of oversimplifying, we're in the business of trust.
Yeah, definitely. So, as a bank or investment management entity, we are actually the keepers of the money information of almost everybody. And it is our accountability to make sure we protect that data at all means at the direction of regulator, and also making sure client information is protected all times, including the employee. We treat them equally because GDPR. We have to protect everybody's information, and that's why it's so critical that we address all these things, along with our business partners and technology partners.
Yeah, maybe if I can add something. I totally agree with André. Trust is at the center of every financial institution. So and I would make the parallel with regulation. So regulation is more to make the industry at the same level. So you're not regulate. It's not regulation first. It's trust first, and then regulation just make sure that everybody follow the group. So I don't think there's any organization that is only focused on regulation. But yes, we are a lot regulated. So because many angles need to be checked and verified. So that's the regulation industries.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I completely agree with everything that was said. Trust is key. I think that what's also very interesting is the banking and the financial industry went through a major transformation, just like everyone else, from a digital perspective. So we've introduced a lot of new aspects that were not previously known or accepted, especially from a trust perspective, right? Because banking was very, very typical transactional type of activity. Now where we are in the digital world, and transactions are happening instantly, you have new products that are being offered, powered by cloud computing, et cetera, it requires new segmentation within the compliance and regulation to make sure that that trust is there as we continue to evolve from digitalization and shifting a lot more of our products to spaces of fintech.
You all talk about regulation and obligation. For what is for the Canadian business? So Canadian financial institution, what you have to adhere to?
It really depends on which organization you're talking to and our footprint. We're all interprovincial or international organizations, so that will dictate, and depending on your sector of activities, it will dictate which regulators you're also have helping you in your ecosystem. I deal with about 26 regulators in our small business. First and foremost, of course, for one of the top 6 Canadian banks is OSFI, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions. But they're well surrounded by other entities. And all of them come with their own perspective, have us pay attention to different aspects of our business, and bring varying requirements. But to GS's point, I think it's a starting point, a necessary starting point that harmonizes our activities and ensures that trust is maintained across. But you can't stop there. It's just a starting point.
If I can add, so all business sector is regulated, and it's regulated per the different government level. So even us, our credit union, Desjardins is regulated by the IMF, so Autorité des marchés financiers. So, but that's just to name one. And maybe to add to the regulation discussion is the industry best practice that we need to follow. So like PCI, ISO 2701, SOC 2, Type 1, Type 2. So then, all these industry best practice comes into play also. They all have the same purpose. It's just to harmonize, to make sure that everybody does the minimal. It's not, you don't exceed by meeting the regulation. You just do what you have to do.
And just to add, I think what's interesting is the interdependency and the learning process that's happening between different regulatory bodies. So we're being regulated in all the different countries that we operate in, but also, for example, in the US, you have a state-based regulatory requirement that you have to adhere to, right? So for example, in New York, you have the FS 500, then you have the California regulatory body, et cetera, et cetera. What is really interesting to see is that once there's an adaptation and a change of one of them, you see how a lot of it is being adopted by others. So it's really interesting to see how the regulatory bodies are actually learning from one another, and I think, in my opinion, are up-leveling. And it also helps to create some standardization versus being siloed, reviewed by different governing bodies.
I can add to that. It's not an easy answer because a Canadian bank can operate in US, Singapore, Germany. An American bank operates in Canada, Singapore, Hong Kong, and so forth. So how do you really deal with all these regulations, right? Regulations are basically sets the playing field on a level for all the banks. They all have to oblige to that and implement them. But it is very complex. There are like hundreds countries. If your bank is in 100 countries, how are you going to do that? So what we do is we have governance where we load all the regulations and what they ask us, and we normalize it to the highest standard. And that's what we transform into security policies, standards, and procedures.
So it's it's a constraint for financial institution, but at the same time, it's also motivate to do better. Is that right?
Yes. If you're in this field, you gotta love your job. Otherwise, you'll get bored. You know what I mean? So definitely, that's a motivator. GDPR, right? It came from like suddenly it came, and they wanted us to enforce that. We never thought about all those things, all the controls recommended GDPR. I want to know your guys' opinion. How do you manage in Canada the GDPR regulation?
Probably the same way you do. And we have the pleasure of having new regulations locally that go in the same direction. But to your point, it's about understanding the entire set of expectations, leveling up, and making sure that you meet that across. But that would be looking in the rearview mirror. I'm sure none of us are stopping there. We're all looking forward for the emerging, to Dimitri's point, to the emerging new regulation, or to the one regulator who's pulling a little bit ahead, and we're trying to get even beyond that. Because at the end of the day, we're business leaders, a business based on trust, and you can't just wait for the regulation to catch up to you. You got to be ahead of it. So you got to be cutting edge in technology. You got to be understanding the environment. You have to be understanding of the threat, and stay ahead of what's coming at you. And regulations can't possibly do that.
And to add to that, to the point of trust, it's not that the regulator that pushes us to be better, it's our customers that are pushing us to be better. It's the need to meet their expectations and to make sure that we constantly revalidate the trust that they give in our business. And then I think the conversation with the regulator becomes a lot more streamlined and more simple because we're pushing ourselves to see, just like you said, a little bit further ahead. Then when the regulation comes in, it's like, okay, so you're compliant with what we need you to be to make sure that that trust is met. But our objective is to constantly be where our customers expect us to be from security standpoint, obviously.
And at PayPal, you present itself as a trust intermediary. What cybersecurity guarantee does it offers to bank and also to users?
So I think that PayPal brand is built on security and is built on our promise to the customer. What's important to mention is that there are different aspects of security as we pertain to that. So sometimes there is an association of security with risk and how the ability to kind of to secure the account. The objective of our group is to make sure that the company is secure and all of the capabilities that we develop to make sure that PayPal is secure first and foremost, and then the products that we ship are secure for our customers. So it's kind of more of a look internal in order to achieve and accomplish and make sure that the trust stays at the high level that it is.
Let's talk about the threats right now. What do you qualify as major threats right now to the financial sector in Canada and the United States?
I can go. Probably most of you already know is malware and ransomware. That's one of the major threat. Second one is insider threat. If you have a rogue contractor or employee, they can steal stuff from inside. So those are the key to risk which we are addressing.
Well, if I can add to this, also agree ransomware is a trend in the industry. So and account takeover, if I can add something. So and that brings our members and clients or consumers of our solution into the threat. So account takeover is can be geared toward our employees and can be geared toward our consumer. So and account takeover is one large threat in the industry, and I think even PayPal. So we all have to live with it. So it's an unresolved issue. So we have technology today to mitigate that risk, but we cannot remove that for now. So.
I think what people might still think about in the financial sector is there's a vault somewhere with a bunch of cash. I almost jokingly say that we're software companies with an affinity for financial products. And as financial companies, we have products to deliver. My biggest threat is speed. My biggest ally is speed. We need the business to transform and adapt to the user and the client needs. But at the same time, the attention span of folks looking at their app, going online, getting an unsolicited email or a proposal that they can't refuse from some prince in the coastal plain of Africa. I'm dating myself though. Speed is that element. As a business, we need to transform ourselves constantly. That puts pressure and friction on quality. It puts pressure on the user and the clients and how they consume our products. And this is where those threats that we qualify manifest themselves. But at the end of the day, it's that velocity that we're managing.
Yeah. If I can add to that, and I think it's really important, it's part of the solution. So the agility of an organization to follow your client's need, your member and client needs is really important, because if your member and client needs shift, so your solution need to follow that. Same thing with the threat. So you need to be aware of the new threat. So you need to. It's like a battle. So you need to react. So you need to defense, offense, and you need to move at the pace of your opponent. Otherwise you're a victim. So
I also want to add that I don't think there is a major difference in threats between industries. We need to step away from it because it creates our own manufactured silos, which hurts us from the ability to actually change information and be better at what we do. I think the question is, the threats are the same. It's the gain. It's why would an adversary will go after an entity. Because if you ask anyone else from a different segment or a different sector, they'll say ransomware, they'll still say insider threat, they'll say the same thing. It's why we're targeted is because of that potential higher financial gain from getting access, that pot of gold that is, that we're all sitting on, metaphorically speaking. And so it's a question of not necessarily, is there anything unique for the financial sector? It's just how damaging the same type of threats are for the trust brand that we have for our customers.
That's a good one. I would like to add one more. When you ask the question, to who you ask the question, what is the threat? So as a security officer, I gave you a security answer. But if you ask the same question to somebody else in the business, they'll say, we are facing threat not to innovate. Now we have digital currency in the marketplace. Are we ready for that? for our next business because trends are shifting. So that's the threat. If you don't innovate, you can be out of the business.
That was one of my next question, the big thing in financial security. But just before going there, I just wanted to add that a new study report that in the U.S., 22% of adults have been hit with the account takeover fraud in the last year. So you said it's ransomware. It's probably more for companies to get more money from them, and account takeover. It's probably for users, personal users. Is that right?
Well, exactly. The victim at the end of the day is the consumer.
Yeah.
But then the organization, there's a shared role between that. So they are not left alone. So we support them into that. And we try to minimize the impact of account takeover because we're mesh with that. It's an ecosystem. And
Yeah, I'll add to that. So these are all different challenges we are facing, you know. So, but if you zoom back and really understand how does the attack work, and if you dissect that, and you will see 92% of attack are targeted to the end users, all of you guys, on your phone, email, voicemail, send me my money, calls from different countries. So those are the 92% is that vector, right? But it is transforming into different problems like ransomware, account takeovers, and so forth.
Is it? Well, okay.
Well, I just want to go back. And speed is the enemy. So we all want to do as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and we spend 1 nanosecond on an email that has a link. So it really goes back to the basics of stop, think, and don't click.
So why is still working? Like we're at the end of 2022 and people are still clicking that link. I received like a SMS saying that the government can send me $500, and I was like, okay, come on. But
Yeah,
there's
I can
few
answer that.
people will
So
click on that.
coming back to a 92% when I said, is they are playing against all of your psychology because we all want attention. We are designed, human beings are designed for that. So they attack our weakness, and that's how they target us.
and maybe to add, it's a matter of sophistication. So the one you just received that you gave as an example is easy for you, but if we just augment the sophistication, of the attack to you, then you will get into the trap. So if I'll give you an example. So if you approve, invoice sometime and someone mimic that, and it's really a clear copy of that, so you'll get hit by that. So it's just a matter of sophistication, and that's the today the attack is at that level, but each year it augments. So that's what we need to improve and to augment our quality just to be above the threat level. So.
And Jess, you were talking about my language earlier, saying that the enemy is a thinking enemy. The good news is criminals are still lazy, and they're looking for a quick return. So why does it still work? If you send millions of them and 10% do something about it, the return on investment is really good, right? If we manage to close these easy returns and we raise that bar, the investment required to make illicit money becomes more sophisticated, higher, and then we'll be in a better position. But it's hard.
And to add to that, to my previous point of expansion of our services in digitalization, we've done that with speed. We haven't matched the level of awareness and education to the amount of customers that we have. So if you think about it, 22% sounds high, but if you look at all of the different segments of the population that now do banking online, for example, that's, let's take a look at the segment that actually falls for this, right? You're saying, oh, come on, the government's going to send me 500, but somebody in their 70s, 80s that have a smartphone, that receive it, their awareness, the education is not at that level like yours. Today, I get a lot more pings from, hey, there's no way that PayPal sent this to me. This has got to be phishing. 10 years ago, I didn't have the same amount of conversation and awareness around phishing. So you say 22, I look at it from a different angle and say only 22 as compared to what it was.
Yeah.
And the criminals are paying attention. So you don't just generic $500. You get a $500 offer when the economy isn't so great and you might need the money. Or you get a phishing link when the queen passes and the new theme comes up. So this is a manifestation of the thinking actor at the end. So we need to get ahead of that thinking curve and understand where they're heading to be there before them.
And just to add, it's a matter of context. So you said the 500, it was in the context of the government was saying they will give money. So it didn't reach you, but if you expect something, you might click on it because it's in the context. You expect that. It's not written in the way you expect, but it's close to the context you are in, and you click on. You would be surprised by, if we test. Well, we do in our organization. We do test many times per year, and even people really well aware, sometimes they click because it's more targeted. So then it's not easy.
I would like to add one more thing. As Andrew was saying, speed to innovate, speed of things, right? But I think I want all of you to pay attention is why is this happening, right? We have speed of innovation of apps, but we don't have speed of innovation of awareness to the end users. Are you aware these are the things, how it works? This is how the hackers track you. I think everybody has a responsibility to make your organization aware, your family aware, that this is how hackers attack you guys, right? So be cognizant of it, think twice before you hit that link.
And right now it's pretty easy to find a phishing link and to understand what's bad, but with the AI and I don't know if the word in English, but the fake calls from the CEO that say transfer money. So there's a lot of new technology. We can talk about DALI, the AI that is painting anything that you ask. So hackers will be like more sophisticated. So it's one of the threat that is coming probably.
They are already sophisticated. We are not. They're already using AI. And the best way to find out if some of you guys are working on Amazon Cloud, start opening up an internet instance. And what you're going to see, instantaneously, you'll start getting attacks. You just open up the internet instance. So you would think, how did that happen? Those are the machines always looking for attacks. The moment you open an internet server, the machines already started pinging you. So we have to be more smart with, we should also use AI technology. A lot of good vendors out there today, you should take a look at it. They use AI technology to block some of those attacks.
Let's talk now about cryptocurrencies. PayPal allows payment in crypto. How do you protect your wallets?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure that we have a couple of hours for that.
No. In like a minute.
In like a minute. I think that one of the value adds in cryptocurrency, right, it's the ability to tend to new markets and offer new products. But at the end of the day, it's a technological stack. So when you unpack and when you look at it, of course, it's a different stack that requires different levels of protection. But the key pattern here is to do a proper threat modeling and threat assessment against that new stack, and then adjust your controls and security in accordance to that. But it's not that it changes the philosophy or it changes the approach of what we're trying to accomplish from securing the accounts. It just means that we need to expand the level of controls that we have to make sure that it incorporates the new stack that we have integrated.
That was pretty good for a quick answer. Do you wanted to add something about?
Yeah, I'll add. So thank you for giving the technology controls. But as a big banks or investment vehicles, we also have to do anti-money laundering checks on the new account. We want to make sure whoever is opening the account is not a rogue criminal or from the rogue nation. So on the business, we overlay on top of this technology controls, we have anti-money laundering checks, know your customer checks.
If I can just spin it out a little bit, you opened at the beginning and we talked about fintech briefly. What we're really talking about is the chain of trust is changing. There'll be cryptocurrencies or a fintech ecosystem. The way we approach the distribution of trust is evolving. So we have to map our own security models to this new changing model. And that's where cryptocurrencies or fintech securing APIs take a whole new importance.
Are they the crypto subject to the same security and compliance requirement that banking sector that you talked before? Is it the same regulations?
Regulators are still figuring out, in the US at least, how do you manage this kind of threat? Because they have to understand what crypto is. How does it really work? Basically, it is a distributed ledger. Your transaction is stored, instead of getting stored on one computer, it is stored on hundreds of computers in small slices. So we have to understand that first. How does it really underline ledger, distributed ledger technology works? But we do have a control, as I told you, business controls, technology controls, encryption, making sure data is secure, making sure account is secured. So we allow those things, right? And also the custody of those assets. We need to secure that too. Otherwise, somebody will hack your wallet and steal the crypto. How do you protect? So we focus on all those aspects, making sure the wallet is secured as well as the account information is secured.
I'll do something outrageous. I'll tell you that regulators have a tough job because what they're looking for is systemic stability. But at the same time, they want to enable us to innovate, do things differently. They want all of us to use new products, enable the economy to just explode, right? So they have to understand and take baby steps towards effective measures while not constraining a blossoming economy. So yes, you can now say that I defended regulators on a stage.
And I very much agree with you. I think that as bold as we all should think that it is, and I very much agree with you because it's a very tough job. How do you regulate something that by design is decentralized? And what is that regulation gonna mean? Now if we go back to the previous answer and we say that there are different countries that regulate differently, that we, even within the states, that different states regulate differently. What does that mean from something that is so brand new and infiltrated so fast, across the globe?
Yeah, maybe my point of view would be, I think from a business perspective, cryptocurrency is not well regulated or is starting to get into regulation, and it's worldwide, so it's different. It's, as you said, it's decentralized. So, and from my point of view, the container, so the application that does transaction in this form, well, that's regulated. So and what we discussed previously, so our application is, to store information, to store account, to prevent account takeover. Everything that we said before is already regulated. So the container is regulated, but the business aspect of cryptocurrency is getting started. So it depends on the country.
You talk about the cryptocurrency. I think about ransomware because they always ask for
Exactly.
payment in Bitcoin or any other crypto. So hot topics. Do we have to pay the ransom? So for someone here that is going to get the ransomware, you have to pay.
That's a tough one. At least If you are a investment bank or regular bank in United States, the White House put a note out there in last 6 months. And it blocks companies from paying Bitcoin or crypto if they get hacked. Means company has to pay fine. So why did they do that? They regulator want banks to secure stuff, not pay ransomware to rogue nations, and that affects directly your brand value. If you pay, your name is out there. Your name is already out there, first of all. Now you're gonna pay. They're not gonna give you data. You have first reputation, so it's better not to pay. Have the controls in place. So government is blocking the finance sector not to pay. Not only finance, but other sectors too. They should not pay any ransom. You should invest that money in putting controls.
Yeah, maybe just to add to that. So ransomware and is there today with all that money transfer through cryptocurrency, because of that kind of wallet. Otherwise, hacking previously, it was tough to monetize. So then today, your organization is getting jailed from an operational perspective, and your data might be stolen also. And then if the organization pay, then you feed the monster, you feed the threat. So then the more you feed the threat, the more the threat is sophisticated. So the more you pay. So it's kind of an amplification. So and that's why today a lot of organizations face that. I'm pretty sure these threat actors have a long list of organizations that they just wait to send ransom to manage that. So they have a lot of footprint already installed in an organization. So it's not to pay is a regulation thing. It's going to be illegal one day to pay in all countries. I hope that that day comes soon, and to start to slow down the threat.
If you look at the ransomware campaigns, you once again saw the intelligent actor because they were targeting the most likely to pay organizations, and they were shifting their campaigns to a point where they're actually breaking into insurance companies to know who has what coverage, so they would target and ask a ransom at that coverage. So you see there a level of sophistication, and the decision making, the time element and speed again for businesses makes that decision very difficult. On principle alone, you should never pay. It's obvious. But everyone has to make the decision, and I can only have empathy for the small company whose future is at risk, and they're facing that decision that can't be easy. But at the end of the day, I think with Sunil's point, what are you really buying? You're buying a criminal's maybe return of the keys so that maybe you can decrypt and hope not to be hacked again in the future. But if your business is about to die, it's a tough one.
And we have cyber insurance to manage other costs. Like you should, like small, mid-sized company, as you said, cannot afford, so how are you going to manage this now? So that's why like mid-sized and small cap companies, they should augment their strategy and coverage with cybersecurity insurance.
Is it the same thing for end users?
I think that very much in agreement with Andre. That's why I didn't jump in, because I think he kind of very well articulated what I wanted to say, and that it's boiling down to a decision tree. And the bigger you are, the more options you have. Law enforcement, you have other peers, you have other compensating controls, you have backups. There's a lot more that you can factor in your decision, and I completely agree that on principle there should be a complete no. It's the mom and pop shops, it's the end user that are faced with an extremely difficult situation. And at that point, I think it's more boils down to what is my loss? What is my personal loss? What is my financial loss, especially if it's a small business? And if I now need to restart, what does that mean? And it all boils down to, can I afford it?
You just talk about small business and mid-sized enterprise. How can they protect themselves, and how can you help them to protect themselves? That was a good question. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a tough one. In the Canadian economy, I can't remember the statistics, but it's over 90% of the business are small, medium businesses. And if I recall, it was less than $1,000 a year they would spend in security overall. So how do you bring them up? It's an ecosystem problem. It's a collective problem. Large companies who purchase their services have a role to play. The government has a role to play. There's no silver bullet here. It really is about looking at the entire value chain and making sure that at the end of the day, the 90+% small medium enterprise get the motivation and the funding to bring them in cybersecurity awareness, taking basic steps and moving up the difficulty. But it's not easy to get started.
If I can chime in, so getting into the solution mode, Cybereco was created. One reason of the creation of Cybereco is for that. So my point of view is small enterprise, it will be tough for them to get to that level because threat is too high for them. With the funding they have, for me, I think it's unfair. Because a large organization, they can afford, to defend themselves. Small organization, I think it's probably unfair. So creation of Cybereco was done by large organizations that work together and help themselves together. So like account takeover is will maybe be one team that we will work together. And then we try to take these document or information and to give it back to the small enterprise. So I would encourage a small organization to go to the Cybereco website to see there's, we started, so it does not cover everything, but we start to publish a lot of IP and information for small enterprise. And the more we'll work together, the more they'll have, and that's free for them. So I think we need to help them at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, I can add more color. If I am small business myself, based on what knowledge I have, what I would do is make sure, I'm assuming don't have developers or big servers and stuff like that. I'm 90% buying the service from someone. So you make sure who are you buying the services from, your vendors, service provider, demand security on their products. Ask them, put them in the contract. Because 90% I'm buying those products, right? If I'm a small business. Second, that is called to insure. Make sure you have insurance, right? Cybersecurity insurance, such as AI, augmented insurance. There are a lot of companies out there, like Mobile Insurance and other companies. What they do is, when you buy the insurance, not only they sell you the insurance, they actually scan your network, your vendor products and other stuff. So you're practically getting it for free while paying the premium, right? So as a small company, you should do that. Third one is, which I already spoke, educate your staff, employee, not to click on those crazy email or spam tags, because that's how the attack starts. So those are the three things I would recommend for small business.
I think that initiatives like Cyberco are an ability to provide access to information is key. I think that what a lot of the smaller businesses are missing, those that cannot afford dedicated security teams, is the knowledge of how do you create your risk matrix. So we're talking about that there's a very limited amount of budget that you have. It's the question about how do you maximize that budget that addresses the maximum of risks to the type of the business that you have. So if I now need to spend 20% on my endpoint protection, why? How does that reduce the risk? So it's not just the awareness and the importance of cybersecurity. I think most understand that. It's the applicability of what we essentially were taught when we started in security is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. I'm kind of going back to the basics of security. What does that mean if breached to my business? And then take that budget that you can spend and apply it to where it potentially hurts the most, reduce the risk, and then, just like with everything else, accept or defer to your next budget line the rest of the risk that you have. That type of conversation, that type of education needs to be a lot more available for smaller businesses.
What's crazy to me is when I go and buy a car, I don't have to worry about does it have the right safety features? Is it safe to drive? Will the seatbelt work? Will the brakes work? So I want to go back to there's a role for government to raise the bar here. I should be able to go to one of the large cloud security providers and buy a turnkey solution where I know that there's, as a small business, I'm covered. I don't have to, maybe I need to get a driver's license, right? Because I need to get a driver's license. But otherwise, I take the car and I drive it on roads that are regulatedly safe, that are patrolled, that have speed limits. So we're still at the era where we're building each our own cars, and we're telling the folks with fewer means, figure out how to get the best car possible before you hit the road.
I
And
totally
that's
agree.
crazy to me.
Yes, you should demand your vendors that they give you the secure product, 100%.
Maybe to add to that, so, and I totally agree, is it the government or the industry? So yeah, exact. But you know, if you project yourself 50 years, in 50 years, I doubt it will still be a challenge for enterprise. You know, because each enterprise have to challenge, you know, have to face the challenge themselves. I doubt in 50 years it's going to be regrouped either by the industry, like Cybersécurité kind of initiative, or the government. So, but we need to federate these kind of capabilities, like threat intel and you know, to defend from the network, or to ask service provider to higher the bar. And but yeah, totally agree. So we need to federate and collaborations.
The title of the panel is Cybersecurity at all cost. Is it really at all cost? So when it's too much, it's too much.
I can answer that. Why would you want to protect a business or spend $2 million on security when your business itself is not generating that much revenue? You would never do that. You're going to be lost. So it is not at all costs. You should prioritize your business based on what it does. For example, if you are a doctor and you have your patient, what is the most important? Patient's information and transactions associated with it. So you prioritize based on importance of information and assets and apply security, start applying security controls there. Start from there. So, and then you build from that.
Maybe to add to that, so it's yes, we are in a domain which there's an infinite possibility. So at all costs, yeah, you can spend. There's no end. Okay, so, but at the end of the day, prioritization is one point, and maybe another angle to add is to reduce your perimeter. You know, so I see organizations that support, you know, all kind of operating system. They support all kind of cloud. They keep their application for a long time. So, you know, the more you have a large perimeter, the more investment you'll need to make to manage the threat. So just to reduce the perimeter, like a simple example for employee or consumer is to use your technologies just for the purpose it is intended for. So like an employee, just to stay inside a business usage for the computer. So you don't go to Home Depot to shop during lunch. No, don't do that. Just keep your usage for the business purpose. So that's an example of a reduction of a perimeter.
I think that you could apply the same question to any segment of the business. Is it sales at all costs? Is it marketing at all costs? There's really no limit to what you can do. Of course, you know, we believe that cybersecurity is the most important thing, but that's what we do. That's our job. I think that it really boils down to what I said previously to smaller companies. The same applies to us. and it's what cost associated with risk and what's the risk appetite and the risk acceptance of each and every business. And based on that, you make the adjustment that you need, because you can't remediate everything under the sun. You can't solve every cybersecurity problem under the sun. Because even if you throw infinite amount of budget at current threats, there are evolving and new threats that you're just not aware of. And if you're not aware of, there's probably fewer, I would say, companies that can remediate and help solve for that. So it's always going to be a cat and mouse kind of chase. So you have to apply some boundaries, and those boundaries are risk.
And I can't agree more. It's about finding balance. It's about a risk appetite. It's about investing at the right speed. It's about training folks at the right speed, to the right level. And it's constantly rebalancing. Is it at all cost? It's a business decision. How much you want to invest to maintain the trust, to have more sales, and all the other aspects of the business.
And the definition of risk management itself is cost of implementing control should be appropriate to your value of your total asset. So that's the definition of risk management.
So you have basically know if it costs more to react after a cyber attack, for example, than to protect. So most of the time, does it cost more to protect or to react?
It's a difficult mathematics.
Yeah.
You don't know
It's
what
not
you don't
that
know.
easy.
You don't know what you don't know. Go back to my previous analogy. Our roads are as safe as we want them to be. We still have insurance, paying premiums for car accidents. We unfortunately still have loss of lives, but we found that equilibrium where we're okay. We have enough accidents. Pitiful way to put it, but enough security in our cars, in our roads, in our patrolling. So it's about the point of Dimitri. It's about finding that balance.
And
Yeah, so how do you find balance for a small or mid-sized business, right? So that begs the question, how do you find the balance? So if you're doing annual budget exercise for your business, you create scenarios. Like that's what big companies do. They create scenario. What if I'm gonna get hacked and I lost 500,000? Can I afford that? And if you cannot, how much controls I can spend on? So you find those balance by risk appetite, as what he was saying. That's a risk appetite technique. Every year you look at your business and see, if I get hacked by ransomware, how much loss I can afford to lose. And then you start from there and say, okay, I need $20,000 antivirus software or anti-ransom software. You start from there.
I think it's a hard link to create between the payment to recover from an incident versus the budget to maintain your posture, your security posture, because if an incident occur, a week after it's going to reoccur. So you need to protect. At the end of the day, you will fail many times. So it's not just one incident. So I don't think we use the impact of an incident just to help prioritization, but we never rely on that. And even cyber insurance, you need to do your work, so you cannot transfer that risk. So it's a risk that the organization own, and you need to do what you have to do. So I know it's not a simple thing, but there's a minimal that we all have to do. So.
To your earlier point, the role of communities. We're in CyberEco, we're in CCTX, FSI SAC, International Cyber Alliances. Why are you there? Because you're not the only one who's victim. You get to learn from others. You get to see best practices from others. So in finding that balance and developing those scenarios, you look for the lookalikes, and you say, well, I look like that business. They're investing this much. Perhaps that matches my needs. And you find solutions to your problems in those communities.
There's about 5 minutes left to this panel, and I wanted to ask if you have any question. There's a microphone just right there. So.
I thought we were asking the questions.
Hello. I have two questions, basically. One is more specific, and the second one is more global, addressed to everyone. So my first question, I'm going to start with the most specific one, to direct it to Mr. Suni Baldani. I was wondering, you mentioned earlier that the ransomware in the US is not paid, so you rather disclose it maybe and work with the authority instead of paying any ransomware. And I was wondering, in case of you had ransomware in the US, and we know that hacker can move laterally, and banking is international. You have branches everywhere around the world. So what if the issue is propagating cross-bank, and we know that it's never one ransomware? Once it starts, it's going to propagate. And the related question about this is from an insurance point of view. Is your insurance covering this situation from a global perspective or from locally? If you have a breach in one area and it's propagating to other countries, how do you deal with that?
Okay, let me add the clarification on what White House said to all the companies, that it is recommended we don't pay ransomware. This is specifically directed to the businesses, right? Now, so that was the recommendation from them. Is it possible people are going to do that all the time? My answer is no. Some people don't have anything, no backups, no nothing. They are not left with any choice, right? So those people will. But it's better always to engage the authorities, like three-letter authorities, right? They are there to help you. Don't be afraid of them, FBI and all those things. They know more information about that than you yourself, so work with those authorities, right? That is recommendation. Second, as big banks, right, we have a lot of controls at the endpoints, right? So coming down to ransomware, how you really get ransomware, right? You should ask that question, right? So coming back, it always starts with an email or a spam or some bad website you clicked or it's something you downloaded, right? So we have a lot of controls to mitigate that. Like that certain emails won't even come to your inbox because there is AI augmented tools which are at the gateways. They're actually constantly blocking those. Second, even if that email gets through and you click on it, we have another control which sits on the desktop. We have antivirus control. We have DLP controls. Suppose the ransomware got, you clicked on it, it downloaded on your box, and now it's running. We have another software to detect that. To neutralize that, it disconnects the network, and the threat intelligence officer is involved, right? So that is the control, and the machine gets disconnected from the internet, so it is not going to spread. So those are the controls we have implemented.
Okay, and the second part about the insurance, how does it work?
So yeah, for any big banks, right? So there are different types. Very good question, right? What type of insurance, right? So there are many insurance. So you have insurance for incidents. You have insurance for fraud. Insurance for fraud. You have insurance for human error. Somebody typed incorrectly, and then there are insurance specific for cybersecurity attacks. So we have multiple level of insurance.
Insurance is done at the country level.
And enterprise level.
Enterprise level. Okay. Second question is more broad. It's in terms of board oversight, and we know that the board oversight will set the tone at the top. I mean, I know I'm not expecting you to be a board member and give your point of view as a board member, but I would like to understand what they're currently focused on. Is it legal, regulation? What are they demanding, and what are actually
I want my colleague to take
their
that.
focus?
Tough one. I think their predominant question, at least to me, is to show that we know what we're facing, we have a good grip, understand, have controls, manage those controls, can report on those controls. So it's more about showing mastery of the domain than the specifics of the outcome. I think they're very aware of what we're facing as far as challenges, but they want to make sure and we need to report to them that we cover all the bases with a business perspective.
I have a question specifically about vetting your employees. Now, since you are critical infrastructure, how do you continuously vet your employees? Because as we know, due to the political climax, we have, I call them the threat actors, but soldiers on the forefront. So they tend to corrupt critical infrastructure from the ground up. We protect our networks, softwares, and all of that. But how do you really protect your enterprises? Do you have something in place specifically? Which sort of brings me to a second question that ties into that. How do you mitigate your position? Because I feel like everybody's talking about dodging bullets all the time and not actually, nipping the problem in the butt, as they say, and actually, like these threat actors are not, being prosecuted. So here they are, continuously working harder and harder, multiplying, and how do you mitigate between your position and law enforcement? Does law enforcement, help, or do you even just forget about that at the moment and just concentrate on, they said, dodging the bullets?
Want me to go? Yeah, that's good. Okay, thanks for the question. So internal threat first. I think we all invest a lot in that. It's a specific muscle or capability. So part of the cyber program or part of the financial crime unit inside an organization, there's a specific capability only on that. So to prevent, but also to detect and to sanction. If because generally an employee, if it becomes an internal threat, it starts small. So just policy, deviation from a policy perspective, it starts like that. So you just tend to keep them inside the policies. So, but it's a specific capability inside our organization, and we do share practice in each organization to help each other to improve that detection level. Your second question was more. To go to the root source of threat, and that's a specific subject. We know in Canada there's Pierre-Luc Pomerleau who've done a PhD on that subject, and we need to improve that. So Andre made the reference to work more or to involve the government inside our battle or our defense. So that's the kind of question you ask. So, and yes, we need to work more with law enforcement, telecommunication provider also, because if without barrier we could resolve from a country level perspective the threat, obviously, but there's a lot of constraint to share information, so it's not easy to do. But then if you resolve the country, then it brings the multi-country or worldwide discussion, and that's another level, exactly, because threat actors are not generally local. So if they're local, it's a little bit easier, but they're worldwide. So then there's a lot of regulation between country. So it's all the sharing information that's the root of to resolve these at the root. So
I'm actually pretty optimistic by the improvements we've seen recently. 3 years ago, I was very depressed about your question, but what we've seen since is, in Canada at least, we tend, by the way, to have 4-letter agencies, not 3.
That's good.
Maybe because they're bilingual, I don't know. But the RCMP has set up the NC3, so they actually exist. You can actually knock on the door, and I think I see Chris right up here from the NC3, so that's payment for sitting up front. But we do have entities that are actors, that are doing things. And I was at a conference about 6 months ago, when we got a report from a law enforcement agency who had managed to coordinate an international operation where actors in one country coordinated with other countries, and the takedowns had to be done simultaneously. And I understand that's tricky to do, get all the paperwork and everything done, but it was a success. 3 years ago, that was impossible. So I think there's hope.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's starting. So, but we need to continue that path.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more ways where you find the balance, going back to the equilibrium, between protecting the privacy of our customers and weeding out the bad actors and having the right type of partnerships with different agencies that help to kind of mitigate that part. And I think that there are also much better knowledge transfers that are happening between different companies, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with the same type of problem. So I think I very much agree. I think I've seen a lot of intake and improvements in that space.
Yeah, I can also try and answer the two questions. I'll start with the second one. You cannot process the bad actors because they live in the matrix. They're not. They are everywhere. It's a joke, by the way. So anyway, so threat actors, if they are in our country or our partner country, it's easy to prosecute them, and there are a lot of prosecution also happening. Probably, if you just have to work with the authorities, as I told you. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Work with them, because you want them to bring them to justice, right? So that is possible in our countries. Yeah. But what if actors are not here? How can you prosecute them? How can you get them? They literally live in the digital world, somewhere in different countries beyond 20 firewalls and 30 proxies. How can you find them? It's impossible. So what do? You put controls, right? You avoid falling into that trap, right? Now I'm going to answer your second question. What if you have a rogue actor in the company? So how do you mitigate that? So many ways. First one is obviously you do background checks, right, on people you're hiring, contractor or employee. Second, only give access what they need. Do not give them any additional access. That applies to you too. Don't get any additional access which you really don't need, because that opens up the possibility of an attacker attacking you and gaining access, right? So you should only have access based on your job function. So have a good access management program. Third one is there are many tools which does user behavior analytics. It actually fingerprinting your computer. It exactly knows what app do you open, how many time you spend on vendor database, how many time you go to HR. So it's fingerprinting. It's called user behavior analytics. So there are a lot of vendor products which you can implement, and you can actually detect anomaly. So if there is an insider threat who you have only given vendor management access, now that person is accessing a financial website or software, the system will immediately know, it'll create the alert. So those are the tools, techniques. That's a good one. There is nothing that can be done. I can snap a picture. I know where you're going with it. You're smart. So yeah, there is no control for that, right? Anybody can take it. So the control is the first one which I told you. Give only access to what you really need. So that will minimize the effect.
We have a last question. A quick answer, because
I'll make it very quick. I'm sure everybody's hungry. Sorry. Great panel, guys. Thank you for all your insights. It's great to see boots on the ground giving us your experiences. Quick question to Andre. Andre, you had mentioned earlier that you see, and it was a nice quote, you had said that financial firms are software companies with an affinity for financial applications. I'm going to steal that.
You're going to quote me.
I'm going to quote you. It's already done. You're already on Twitter. So in the industry, it seems that banks, since we've gone to the cloud, we're writing more and more code. And technically we shouldn't be, because that opens up our attack surface, because we have to maintain coders to make sure the code is maintained. So what do you see as a healthy balance, perhaps a percentage or a guideline for a financial firm in terms of buying software applications versus homegrown applications? I'd be interested in your thoughts.
That's a good question. It goes back to something we said earlier about making risk-based decisions. You bring insight in your question, right? Understanding that homegrown applications come with a tail that you have to own, but passing down those risks also comes with a tail. that you need to understand and choose that approach to risk management. I don't think there's a one answer to your question. I think each business has to analyze the options that are open to them and then pick the poison. The 3PRM, management of third-party risk, is a current topic that we talk about a lot. So if I was actually to bring my business to third parties, I'm actually improving my posture. Things that I control and do well might be a better investment. So again, it's a tough topic that requires, back to the board question, that I demonstrate that I understand what I'm facing, the consequences of my decisions, and then making the smart investments.
Thank you so much for your time. I think some people would have a lot of questions too, so merci. And for you in the audience, we'll get back at 1:30, so you have plenty of time. Well, not that plenty, but a good time to eat. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good questions.